Anyway, speaking of which, you know, it's been a hot minute since we talked about like VTuber stuff. So, you know, apparently VTuber called out jealous men. It did not end well, apparently. I know who the VTuber is in the thumbnail, so I've seen this VTuber before. I can probably take a good guess where this is going, to be honest. I can see. Well, it's been a while. Might as well. Putting the blame men for everything card. Be a lewd VTuber, crash out over something stupid, and attack people who make up a significant part of your audiences. Why does this keep happening so often? Okay. I see. Just by reading the comment section specifically kind of tells me where this video is going.
Here. So today we're going to be seeing yet another example of the Rev-approved infinite content glitch,
male,
where step 1 involves a VTuber doing or saying something stupid. Step 2, you make it into content. Step 3, that VTuber eventually becomes a hypocrite by their own previous standards they use to judge others. And then finally, step 4, you make even more content out of it, and that's exactly what we're doing in today's video. So what is the context? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it involves this VTuber named L, and you can read their bio. They obviously make a lot of adult-focused content. That's where they get the primary source of their traction from. Now, they shared this on their alt account, and they were trying to make a statement about men and their jealousy towards powerful and successful women. And it did not go the way they had intended. This is the post. It says, "A woman's success should not make you feel uncomfortable. The many times I've met a man who became uncomfortable with me doing well for myself is a lot more than you'd think." Now, this would get a lot of negative responses, but I think the context behind this has to do with the recent move by Twitch to appoint 50 new ambassadors, and there's only been around 200 since the program launched in 2018, so it's a pretty big deal to add on 50 new ambassadors. And one of those ambassadors was this Shibuya individual who's Japanese, and she is now one of the ambassadors. In this tweet, you would see like 10 million views and a lot of conversation, because apparently she used to do a lot of adult content in the past, and now she's on the ambassador team, and people are saying, of course.
Yeah, but the difference is, you know, the difference is between Miss Kaho and Miss Mia Khalifa. So, well, you can already tell the difference between Mia and then this girl. I've watched the videos or so. That also slapped back at Tectone. I did see that did pop up on my feed. I'm gonna be honest with you, Tectone is a little bit out of the line, so because she doesn't know about Kaho. So honestly, I think Shibuya Kaho is like, she's such a sweetheart, to be honest.
Dan Clancy would hire someone like that,
I think she's really cool.
Apparently that's what she did in the past. How much that is relevant to the current time, that's really up to your interpretation. But I'd be much more concerned about the ambassadors having a role in promoting things that are woke. I mean, we've seen some insane agenda pushing by ambassadors and related positions before. I mean, just go back to 2020. Ugh. Not even really over 5 years ago at this point. Twitch hired a self-identifying deer person as a member of their safety council.
So in my spare time, I go out to my yard. And I prance around and I eat grass. And I just munch it because it helps me feel like in tune with my dear self.
Wow. I was not expecting that. Why did he have to remind me of this? I remember the other stuff, but I don't remember that, to be honest. God damn. It has been a long time since I remember this thing. Right. And they appointed this person as Twitch ambassador? Holy shit, dude. These are not my people. What the fuck? The hell is wrong with you? Maybe you should control your people.
I
You
can't
think I am
emphasize
trans
enough
or something?
that this took place just barely over 5 years ago. This should have been a sign that things were going really badly and we're heading in
What
a
the hell?
terrible direction back in 2020. I mean, this person,
I'd
a
have slapped the stupidity
self-identifying
off of
deer
you.
person, had an infamous clip where they had a,
That was still
I
weird,
quote,
though. I'm gonna be honest with you.
deergasm live on Twitch when someone was petting their ant.
Yo, can you repeat that one more time? Excuse me?
Person had an infamous clip where they had a, I quote, deergasm live on Twitch when someone was petting their antlers. That should have been a sign things were heading in a terrible direction back in 2020, but
I
it
did
really
not
represented
know about that one.
a trend because this same person who was on this safety council for Twitch had multiple tweets
Deergasm.
speaking negatively about men and gamers, and
I'm
that sounds
surprised
a
my
lot like what
translation
happened on.
I am surprised that my subtitles actually got that word correctly. That is fucking wild that this subtitle thing actually got it correct.
These platforms and in the gaming industry where people representing those platforms seem to openly despise the target audience of those platforms. And this is just a very exaggerated version of that, but this was a trend that took place for many years. And also 2020 is relevant to the VTuber we're talking about today, given their past comments that took place while they were canceling someone else back in that year. But let's go back to the VTuber in question, L, here in their tweets, talking about women's success and how it shouldn't make men feel uncomfortable and how it's made people very uncomfortable, men
of,
in particular,
porn,
in
right?
some
If I
sort of
remember
a
correctly.
scenario where they were, I guess, interested in her. And people are quick to point out that she's saying this, as a woman, but identifies as non-binary in all of their accounts. And also, people started to ask, well, did these men feel a certain type of a way when they asked what that success was in? Because it's no secret that their success is in making adult content, okay?
Oh, okay.
And that's not being, like, mean. It's being a bit realistic. A lot of people, men in particular, if they were looking at someone who said, I am successful in my career, if you said, this is where the success is, they might have a particular reaction to it. And really at that point, it comes down to preferences. And I don't think there's really anything too crazy about that. People will see, oh, this is where you're getting your success from. And they
Isn't it because like guys are like super territorial or so when they have like their own woman or so? Isn't that's like part of nature, isn't it? It's like it's a thing or so, right? They don't want like, other people seeing their girl, flaunting or just doing any sexual things to anybody besides their own partner.
might feel a certain way about that in the
I'm like,
scenario
that's just
that she is
genetics in
describing in
general.
the tweet, and that is reflected in the replies to it, where people say stuff like this. No offense, L, but if you ever disclose to these men how you make that money, like it or not, the reality is that the majority of men these days don't have a problem with women who make equal or more than them. It's how.
I'm talking about biology, bro. Hazu, I know you just woken up, but come on. Wake up, Hazu, wake up. It's biology. Hun.
Many women make that
Ay,
money
ay, ay.
that they see issue with. Another one says,
Ay, ay,
maybe
ay.
it's your
No, no,
personality.
no, no, no.
Why don't you ask the people you harassed about it, right, Miss K? And that name will be very relevant in
Miss
just a
K?
moment. But here's some more saying, maybe,
I
I
don't know
mean
what
this
that
with no
is.
offense, but could it have something to do with the fact that you make adult content? This person says, did you tell them how you were doing well for yourself? Like, that's probably more of the reason than being successful. Like, how are you successful probably matters to them less than being successful in itself.
That is true.
And that is something that is kind of repeated over and over again in the replies, but she really tried to gas this up, okay? She made this tweet on her alt account, which, has tens of thousands of followers. It's not like it's a totally random
She has an
account,
alt
but
account?
her next action would be reposting it on that alt account, and then she would switch over to her main account with like triple the following, and repost it there as well. Like, she was really trying to
Jesus Christ. What are we doing, girl?
gas this thing up, and it's like the more attention she brought to this post, the more criticism and negativity she would receive. But this sort of messaging I think is performative, and it's hypocritical for reasons that go beyond what I just described, but it works on some people, right? You can see all of these replies if you dig down enough, there are people supporting this, calling her a girl boss and saying that all these men in the scenario are simply insecure and just can't deal with women who are successful. They're
doing porn. Successful on doing that, you know? But how can they control you, L, if they don't make more money than you and neg you about their investments in you? What? That's like the most fragile male behavior, Lamau. Sounds like small PP energy. Men should be glad that there are women who do some of the heavy lifting and still be adorable buddies that give you attention. Right. I see. It's just jealous and weak-minded men. To be frank, I am a man, cannot accept that a woman is more successful than I am. Holy simps. I'm just kind of like, well, if you think out of it logically, right? Like, if you think out of it as a different perspective, right? How is she famous? What does she do? Oh, you do that kind of content. Well, usually 9 times out of 10, the guys are gonna be like, nah, I'm good, thank you. You know, it's kind of pretty much common knowledge at this point, you know? Like, even my older brother wouldn't date somebody who does OnlyFans or Fansly or any of that sort of like close to that shit, you know? Even then, even for me specifically too, because like, you know, me and my older brother were raised a little bit. Well, my younger sister too as well, but like, I'm just talking about me and my older brother because we were the first ones, and we were raised more old-fashioned, so she's the kind of girl you would screw, nut and bolt.
Eating this up. But one of the quotes point out something very important. Funny you say a woman's success shouldn't make you uncomfortable, yet you joined in on the harassment Kirsha received and another VTuber named Kyoto before you rebranded, and you never apologized.
Funny, you say a woman's success shouldn't make you uncomfortable, yet you join in on a harassment Kershi. Kershi received in another VTuber named Kyoto before you rebranded. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe it's not men, it's you. You're the problem. Holy shit, dude.
Maybe it's not men, it's you. You're the problem.
Welcome.
Now that is some ancient lore, ladies and gentlemen.
I didn't even know about this,
Elle used to have former accounts under different names, and right now she is on the rebranded accounts. And unfortunately, this.
Oh, wait, what's the old account? Yo, you gotta let me know what the old account is.
Skeletons haven't really left the closet, right? They're still there, and they get brought up every time she wants to start talking about things like jealousy, because her attacks on other VTubers in the past seemed like they were born out of jealousy.
To be honest.
And that Kyoto situation goes back to 2020. If you want to talk about like kind of the OG days of the Western VTubing scene becoming what it is today, at least on social media, a non-stop cancellation fest that's obsessed with virtue signaling and policing people's behaviors, Kyoto was like one of the first ones to have it happen to them. This VTuber, because of her very problematic design, she was attacked relentlessly by primarily other VTubers, right? Her following, though, would blow up as a result. How many times have we seen this before, right? She had a few, I think, 100 followers, ended up with like 10K in like 2 days, because all these VTubers trying to cancel her just brought more attention,
made her famous.
And the VTuber fans, unlike them, actually supported her and rallied behind her.
Yeah, of course.
And one of the people to harass Kyoto back then was, of course, Elle.
Oh, that's interesting.
And seemingly upset with the traction that this Kyoto person was getting, they made a post back in 2020 saying, important message, please retweet. It is not okay to normalize a character that looks like a child and is sexualized. Look closer at what you're supporting. Please don't give us VTubers a bad face. This is just the beginning for us.
You want to know something? People who literally say this in the VTuber scene, right? Because VTubing came from Japan, right? It's a Japanese culture thing, right? It's a Japanese origin, right? But it's also part of anime. It's an anime thing because you're playing an anime girl. If you can't face the fact that lolly is a thing in the anime community, then you are not a true anime fan. Let's just keep it a buck for a buck, okay? All right? That has been in the community in anime for eons. And it kind of really exposes you that you're just on the you're just going on the wave of popularity. That's it. Like, you really personally don't care about the medium itself. You just only care about, like, you know, the money, what it is. Just makes you look like a tourist, to be honest. It does. It proves that you're a tourist. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know the medium. You don't respect the medium. You don't love the medium. You're just only there for the money and the popularity and the exposure. That's just kind of like it. I'm just saying. You say you like anime, but it's another thing to say it and to actually consume it and enjoy it.
And please retweet this if you want to support the community. I'll be unfollowing anyone tomorrow who's still supporting these actions. This was about Kyoto, right? She was follow policing people. She was saying that we're going to set the standard for the community. She got roasted for this back then, right? She was trying to be the one under this different name back then, trying to basically speak on behalf of the VTubing community, which, of course, there's really no such thing as a VTubing community. It's more of a scene and a medium, but I digress. As pointed out by Curry Renji here, she was very active, and many were very active back then. A lot of them have deleted their posts, or at this point, because it's been like 5+ years, their accounts have completely disappeared, or they've retired, or what have you. But you can see K, which is now L, going through various people thanking her for the response, right? The call out post saying, no, thank you for retweeting this. And this person says, already spoke about an hour or so ago, had to block a mutual already as well because they claimed we were being mean. And L, formerly K, says, F them, they can suck my ink sack. And then, as you can see, eventually these tweets would be deleted.
But once it's on the internet, it can never leave. Remember that. Whatever you post on the internet is never truly gone.
From K/L, and you can see the initial
conversation
doesn't mean here, so they're clearly trying to hide some of these conversations, but this is where it gets very hypocritical, because you remember the actual call-out post, right? Well, she was getting very excited that it was working, that this harassment brigade on Kyoto was working, saying, update, I got her on private. Let's effing go, guys. Let's keep going, though.
That's crazy.
So, celebrating that this Kyoto person was getting harassed to the point of privating their account, and then she was celebrating this and saying,
"Want to know something? This makes a lot of sense. Why the guy is, you know, also feeling uncomfortable by her. You know, the vibe check is not going through.
Let's keep going." So it wasn't enough to slander this VTuber and to incite this harassment brigade against them. Even when the VTuber being targeted went private, they wanted more.
Interesting.
And of course, this whole thing was predicated on this whole idea that they were doing something wrong, that Kyoto was doing something inappropriate and problematic with their design. And of course, when K here would eventually rebrand to their current account, one of their first streams ever was described as Hentai Nights, where they played the not safe for work version of Nekopara, which of course includes all kinds of lolicon, which she just found abhorrently problematic just 2 years prior and thought that was something you should be run off of social media for.
Huh. It's a bit of a hypocrite, I'm not gonna lie, to be honest. That's interesting. That's very interesting indeed.
Even if your design of your model is simply a lolly and nothing more than that. And of course, as you can see, that post was also deleted. So every time she gets into a bind with the stuff, she just starts deleting her posts. There was also, back in 2022, a series of Google Docs that had people who expressed very bad experiences with L, as well as some of L's.
Am I surprised though? Am I really surprised? I'm like, the behavior started a long time ago.
Managers, and that she was a very controlling and toxic and jealous person. It's worth a read if you want to take a look at all this stuff, but you kind of get the point already. Now, going back to the post in question, the sort of jealousy and the unapologetic nature of her involvement in that previous harassment campaign came into question back in 2024, where Kirsha, many of you know her, she was removed as a guest who had her own panel.
I remember this.
At a convention called Offkai. And one of the guests, of course, was Elle. And people thought this was very ironic that they thought Kirsha was so problematic and awful she had to be removed. But someone like Elle, with an unapologetic history of harassing people, other VTubers in particular, had this panel ready to go. In fact, Offkai would hide replies, bringing up her former harassment campaign, which looked very bad. And in case you're familiar with this whole thing, I talked about it in a pretty long video back in 2024. Crazy situation involving Kirsha. She really got completely screwed over by this convention. Here's just like a small taste, a small rundown. Offkai would try to provide an explanation as to why she was removed from the panel, or her panel was removed. And they basically said this is a volunteer-run event, and your name coming up made some of our staff uncomfortable. So the staff being uncomfortable, I guess, is a reason to remove someone.
Maybe you shouldn't be hiring those staff members and get someone else instead, you know?
From a convention. But don't worry, they said you're not blacklisted from the event. You can still come as a paid guest. Yeah, she didn't go, obviously. But eventually, in a conversation on Discord, someone involved with Offkai would provide the evidence of why they removed her. And this is, again, another sign of how things just come full circle with this cancel culture stuff back in 2024, listing off the reasons. And it says a lot of it comes down to gender identity and DEI type issues in these tweets right here that Kirsha would supply. And you can look at them. They are hilarious. Here's just one example of the problematic tweets. You can see when Discord seemed to roll out a pronoun feature, she made her pronouns Burger Queen. That was something that was evidence to justify her removal from Offkai as someone with a panel at that convention. Absolutely crazy times, ladies and gentlemen, but that's kind of the history here, right? It goes back to the rev cycle here, the infinite content glitch. You have Elle saying stupid stuff and starting harassment campaigns against other VTubers, seemingly out of jealousy for their growth or the attention that they were receiving. And then we made it into content back then and in other scenarios. And then eventually, this VTuber, Elle, for example, comes out with a virtue signaling post that makes them pretty hypocritical by their own standards. And what do? We make more content out of it. That is the infinite content glitch, ladies and gentlemen. But that's going to do it for today's video. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.
It's a very interesting video, I'll be honest with you. I never knew the history. Number one, I never knew the history of this woman, and then number two, it's kind of like, after kind of like knowing about the history itself, now I'm kind of having a little bit like questionable. Well, I already did, but I have questionable doubts on the comment or so that she posted or so, where like, oh, men are scared that I am a successful woman and everything like that. But it's just kind of like, okay, how are you? Because usually they would say, you know, when you're going on a date, right? When you're going on a date, they would usually ask you what you do for a living, you know? And they'd be like, or, you know, if it got to the question or so, it's like, oh, how, you know, or like, what do you do, you know? Or like, or they'll probably ask in depth or so, and then you say specifically, I make this kind of content or so. They're gonna be like, oh, I see. Okay, all right. Well, thank you for the date and everything. I will, hey, you know what? I'll, message you next time we talk. They kind of basically say like, no thanks, I'm good, you know, because usually 9 times out of it's just pretty common or so that guys are just not into this kind of type of behavior when it comes to like females making this kind of type of money. At the end of the day, it's kind of like just kind of like a shortcut to make money, but in the long term it just kind of ruins your status basically in the long term. I think in order for her to find, if she's trying to find a soulmate, right, you're gonna have to find somebody who is like not connected to the internet, not connected into anime, not connected into VTuber culture or any of that sort of nature, you know? So they don't know what, like, you know, you do overall. So, but hey, it is what it is. So, well, I don't know. As someone who like swings both ways, if I dated a girl, right, if I dated a female VTuber and they did stuff like this or so, I don't know. I don't know if I would. I probably wouldn't, to be honest. I'm gonna be frankly honest with you. I probably wouldn't. I don't know. It's just that just doesn't sit right with me. I was also clown on a guy who's rich because of that stuff. It's just a woman dominated sphere. Yeah, that's the thing itself. It's mostly a women thing because there's a lot of guys who are just gooning or so, who are a lot of lonely men in general. It's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing if I dated a guy in general. It'd be the same thing because like I said, right, I date both. Okay, I date both sides. Okay, I've dated both sides and I will always date both sides. But if it's a guy who's doing OnlyFans or Fansly or any sexual content or so, I'm be like, nah, I'm out. That dick is only for me and my eyes only, okay? I want nobody seeing that dick, okay? And then when it comes to females, like those tits and that ass or so is only my eyes and my eyes only, okay? All right, that's it. If a guy is a top earner, I would be amazed, to be honest. That would be pretty crazy though. But yeah, overall, yeah, I'm good. You know, I don't know. I just wouldn't date somebody like this. It just doesn't sit right with me. I don't know. Call me old fashioned, but it just doesn't sit right with me, to be honest. It really doesn't. It's just a short term, like, it's a short term kind of like that dopamine, but it's a long term God, I can't come up with words. English is hard. I guess it's just a long-term, like, devastating on your status, I guess, like your health or so in general. And as in health, as in like, you know, the mental part, because you can't find your soulmate, you know, especially if you want to start a family or something like that. And that's kind of like basically it. But anyways, besides that, that's the end of the video. And personally, yeah. I got nothing more to say, but I'd be curious to see what my comment section says about this. So.